murders.
Right.
I am I am Heather. One quarter of us three Heathers.
I'm Heather J.
I guess I'm Heather C. Dave?
Hi, I'm Heather N, and I am also a quarter of us three Heathers.
Okay.
And currently I'm drinking a Strongbow.
I'm wearing black today, so maybe I'm JD. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You've gotta pair like the black shirt with the black trench coat. The black trench coat is really good.
It was, yeah. And the Jack Nicholson.
Yeah,
Coming up here to kill you.
Sound exactly like fucking Jack Nicholson. Does he always sound like that?
So,
I don't remember him in Interview with a Vampire.
Okay.
You haven't even introduced yourself yet, Heather.
Yeah.
You haven't even introduced yourself yet, Heather. You're getting ahead of yourself, Heather. What
it's your
is
turn,
your
Heather.
malfunction?
What's your damage, Heather?
Fucking down with a chainsaw. Quit being such a little bitch.
Yeah, we don't know. Do you want to?
I'm not a mean girl. I can't do it.
Can I get you into a Remington party? And how do I get paid? I get paid in puke. That's my favorite line.
Oh my god, this movie is so quotable, though.
I know.
Oh god, yes.
Like, there are just so many good spots. And the last time that I saw this movie was actually at an Alamo movie night. Like, it was a quote along edition, so it was one of those few times where you actually could talk. And I mean, with good reason. This is one of those movies. There's just so many singular iconic lines.
I was watching a YouTube video yesterday, and I wasn't thinking of this movie at the time. It was called People Don't Talk Like This, and it was talking about movies like Juno, Pulp Fiction, heightened dialogue. And I'm like, this might be the first of that wave, because there's stuff in here that is not real slang, but is just like so awesome and definitely invented.
I'll introduce myself and then I'll follow up on that.
Yes.
Because I almost forgot. I'm the only real Heather. I'm Heather K, Heather W, Heather M. I don't know what my last initial is. Can someone
Heather
tell me if this is in bad taste?
No.
You're Heather X.
Now look at the color of what she's pouring into that big fun cup.
Yes. Brilliant. Took me a moment.
Yeah. Oh, cat for the win again. That is awesome.
You want to talk about things that don't happen in real life? Teenagers don't talk like that, and nobody doesn't look at what they're drinking.
Right.
I'm that other Heather.
Yes.
One quarter of us three Blokes.
Yes. So today's a Shudder Club, and Cat shows the movie. And if they're still with us after drinking that concoction,
I think they've been drinking all morning.
I think so too. if they'd like to,
along with Dave there.
No alcohol. It's been 2 weeks at least since I haven't had anything. Just because I keep having fucking headaches. So I really want the rest of that strawberry mead that's in my fridge.
Do you have a headache now?
Like a little.
Oh, well, maybe you could just have a little of the strawberry mead. No. All
right.
That almost sounded like peer pressure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Peer pressure.
I will call Miss Fleming on you, and she will kumbaya your ass.
Yes.
I mean, at least Heather C is not trying to peer pressure you into killing someone.
Right.
Yeah. There's just a lot going on in this movie. So the very opening, I find it very interesting that the opening and closing song of this movie is Que Sera.
Yes.
Sorry, Que Sera. Sera. Whatever will be, will be. It's a very, like, I know this was 89, but I generally tend to refer to like the generation of people who were teenagers in the 90s as the whatever generation. Like, it's, you know, they were super tired of all of the expectations that their parents were putting on them. And everyone was saying, you've got to go to college, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, whatever, man. And JD is apparently the herald of this generation. And we begin with that song, Que Sera, Sera, whatever will be, will be. But it's like a very creepy kind of circusy sort of cover of it. And it sounds very eerie. And I can't remember when the original Stepford Wives movie was made, but it almost gives this garden party that sort of feel, like, yes, everyone shall be the same and perfect and look just so, and if not, you will die.
If not, you'll be buried up to your neck and be the target of our.
Do we think that scene is a dream sequence, or do we think that's just like heightened?
I thought it was an affectation.
Plus
like
one
visual.
point.
That's kind of
Yeah,
it's how she felt about her interactions with the Heathers.
Yeah, but yeah, Veronica is apparently a part of the popular group of girls, the popular girls, but she hasn't always been there. And I've been trying to think of other pieces of media where they have this trope of the popular girls being a group of girls, usually at least 3, if not 4, and they all have the same first name. In this case, Heather. In the Disney cartoon Recess, they have the Amandas, but it's all kind of the same thing, you know. They are usually rich. They usually are, you know, super into fashion. This is, I think, before the whole like popular girls being super into dieting and like eating nothing together at lunch, or I think in Mean Girls they were actually eating cotton balls.
There's the scene in the bathroom though where they're like, "Come on, yeah. Heather, bulimia is so 87."
But yeah, Heather Chandler, yeah, the real Heather C. Dan. Heather Chandler is kind of the ringleader of these girls, and her power is signified by the red scrunchie. And red is kind of an interesting color that comes up again and again in this movie, and it is usually used to signify like being drunk with power.
That was Heather Duke.
I feel like
played by Shannon Doherty.
Just to throw this in there, and then it'll get peppered in later, I'm sure. This whole thing seems to be about not only wanting power, but then knowing what to do with it when you have it, and how if you don't know what to do with it when you have it, all your worst elements are at play.
Yeah. And I mean, that comes up again and again with JD. I mean, he specifically goes to Heather Duke and tells her, I want you to use your strength. This is yet another example, just like with Assassination Nation, of, you know, young high school age boys that are just fucking directionless turning into mass murderers. It does not, and I do want to ask you guys, like, is this what high school was like for you? I know that I had a very atypical high school experience, and so watching any movie that is about the high school experience and features, you know, the jocks and the mean girls and the dweebs and the stoners, completely seems like fiction to me. Like it seems like
my high school
trying to figure out what teenagers do.
Well, I went to the local Catholic school, which was also by default the local rich kid school, and seriously, the clique level there was staggering in terms of just how like each group was kind of cut up and nobody kind of hung out with each other. It really was kind of the high school from Heathers. And the best part was everybody bitched about it and nobody did anything about it.
Yeah.
Because, that would mean stepping outside of my comfort zone. And let's face it, when you're a teenager, comfort zones are real fucking small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John,
And again, we also had the Mean Girls, and then we also had the ones that were popular because they were genuinely very nice and sweet people. So,
It's weird how you can have
that
both.
combination thereof.
And Dan knows that we experienced that same kind of thing. Dan?
I was bullied. I was also a poorer kid, and I was going to a Lutheran school that cost a lot of money to go to. So there was quite a bit of looking down on me for, not wearing the stylish clothes and all that stuff. So I took a lot of brunt of. There were people who had it worse than me, but it was not a fun time at that school. I had friends. I met John there. I'm still friends with Heather to this day and Carrie. But there were a lot of people who did not make my time there very positive.
Yeah, and Dan, you initially thought that I was going to be a bully.
He came up to me and said, "Give me some milk money or something."
I asked you. I didn't say give me.
Well, okay, but that's how I heard everything at that time because that's how everybody else took it. So I was like,
"You have like 10 cents for milk."
So I gave it to him sheepishly, and then he initiated a friendship after that, which is nice.
Yeah, and do you remember? That kid?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that burner? I know I don't remember his name, but he had that keychain that had that F-shaped thing that you put between your fingers. And I specifically remember a time when he came and sat down next to you and started like punching holes in the table to try to intimidate you.
Oh, I don't remember that. Are you sure that was me?
I came over. Yeah, and I came
Did
over.
you have a pair of brass knuckles or something?
No, it was a keychain. It was an F-shaped keychain, and it's one of those things that you can grab a hold of, and the F sticks out between your fingers and below your hand. And he sat down. I don't know if it was. It was next to Dan, and he's like, bam, bam, and he's banging holes into the table. And I was sitting right across, and I came and sat down and told him to leave you the fuck alone.
I don't think that was me. I don't doubt that happened to you. But I think you were
you're shutting it out.
That other nerd.
No, I mean, I think I would have remembered something like that. I mean, I remember much smaller slights than that. And I think I would remember someone
it was you, but
threatening me with a brass knuckle. Heather's.
What's that?
Heather's.
Yes. Heather? What Heather? It's your turn, Heather. So, like I said, Heather C is, Queen Bee, not just like in the high school. And she sometimes when you get into this like Mean Girls trope, the Queen Bee character doesn't always like explicitly acknowledge like, well, no, I'm the hottest thing here, and I'm going to use that to my full advantage. But she says it multiple times.
Explicitly, yes.
Explicitly, yeah. Along with saying "fuck me gently with a chainsaw."
Yes.
A phrase I still use to this day.
Oh yeah.
It's a very good phrase. And another good phrase comes a little while later, again with Heather C around, after she's dragged Veronica along to this college party, because high school boys are beneath them. They're juniors now, so they really have to start thinking up. And I guess I kind of think that Heather was just pissed that like she had to put out in her mind, she had to put out, but Veronica chose to stand up for herself and say, no, I don't wanna, fuck off. Weirdo college freshman who doesn't have a fucking brain in his head.
Oh, yeah, the scene where they're
not only did she have to put out, she had to do something that she clearly found distasteful.
I'm sorry, I was wondering if you picked up on this. So when Heather introduces Veronica to the frat boy who's going to be on the date with her, she says to him, "This is Veronica," and instead of saying, and Veronica says, "Oh, hi," and instead of saying hi back, he turns to the other guy and says, "Thanks," like she's merchandise.
Like Thank you
Yeah.
for giving me the bonus purchase of your purchase.
Yeah.
Of Heather C. I will take this piece of cattle or chattel, either one. Because I was thinking like she's a cow.
Then they go cow tipping.
Well, no, and that's another instance of someone dragging. Is this something that people did to each other? Like, come on, I want to go on a date with this person, but they won't go unless we can double date with this other person. I'm like, y'all are just gonna like creep off to your own sections anyway to make out. Why bother with the pretense? I don't understand teenagers.
It's all pretense.
I was one. But yeah, like it happens later with fucking Kurt and Ram. You know, and there's yet another example, like what's the third Heather's name? Because there's Heather Chandler. Heather Blake is the redhead who becomes mad with power later on, and then
Heather McNamara.
No, you're right. Sorry, McNamara is the redhead, of course.
Right. Played by Lisanne Folk.
Yes. And there's yet another example of a Heather that doesn't really seem to be interested in putting out, but is like kind of going with it anyway. High school.
Well, she was more like being date raped at the cow tipping, because she was definitely struggling to get away from.
Yeah, there's a lot of that happening, because it happens later on the couch after fucking Veronica tells JD that it's over. Because, you know,
he completely changes teams.
You kind of.
I noticed that
always like that. God, and it sucks because he's so cute. For a little while, some things seem to be changing, but then, you know, as Veronica puts it, I cut off the head of one Heather, and another Heather head grew back in its place, like some sort of, you know, monster from Greek mythology that my 8th grade boyfriend would have known something about. I'm like, hey, 8th grade boyfriend sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I think
well,
part and parcel.
I'm surprised that she wouldn't know. I'm a little bothered by that line, because she seems like very well read, and she doesn't know about the Hydra. I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
You know, but part of that
will never play
that,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it might have seemed beneath her in terms of like nerd knowledge and this and that and anything else, and also because of the fact that the movie's about social strata in high school. You know, nerd knowledge is something that a lot of people kind of went out of their way to not acknowledge that they had.
Yeah.
And I think and going with that, I think that part of it is also, you know, there is an assumed element of how it is that you should behave when a role becomes open and you're asked to step into it, or you feel that you have to step into it. So when Heather McNamara steps into that particular role, you get the feeling like she's really been looking forward to being that particular person for a while.
I was watching. I tried to watch Revenge of the Nerds again a few years ago. I couldn't make it through it, but I was watching it, and I'm like, I remember watching in '84 and thinking, yeah, the nerds are getting back at the jocks. But now when I watch it, I'm like, the nerds are just behaving like the jocks. They're just mad that they didn't get what the jocks got, so they didn't learn anything. And so there's sort of a way that JD. So you can see the appeal that JD has, because he's going after the jocks, but he's not that much different from them. It
shows when he tries to force himself on Veronica, you know, and it's like he just defended her, and then that goes on. It's like, you know, what the fuck?
He's not defending her for her sake. He's defending her
as property or.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, JD's a psychopath, so I mean, he wouldn't really view her as a person. So
no,
that boy has a lot of issues going on.
That scene with his dad, his dad behaves that way too. If you listen to the way he talks, if he has to get rid of an inconvenient business thing, he's not above using violence. So the apple didn't fall too far from the tree.
Foundation.
Yeah, no. JD's dad was clearly abusive to JD's mom. I think that's why she stepped inside one of the buildings that he was blowing up. You know what? Maybe she was a librarian and she worked at that library. And on top of it,
Ooh.
he was an abusive asshole. And he's like, all right, well, this is how I'm going to end it to stick it to you. And I won't be around anymore for you to kick around. Although then, of course, you could. I don't like the whole argument, that suicide is a selfish act, or if it is, that it's necessarily a bad thing. But I'm sure that some people, who have been in a similar situation would be like, I'm not surprised that JD, went so fucking off the tracks like that, because suddenly he doesn't have the support of his mother anymore. And he feels like he's been abandoned. Nobody loves him. His dad's too busy with work. And for a man who owns a construction company, he seems a lot more interested just in the destructive acts rather than the constructive acts. Very interesting.
Yeah. All of the conversations with adults in this movie are very prescribed, and they actually repeat almost identically each time.
Yeah. With Veronica and her parents, it's always the same fucking conversation.
Yeah. Why do I read these fucking spy novels? Because you're an idiot. Oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah, they were. Her parents were totally unengaged with the reality of her life, and everything, like you said, was prescribed. They were probably into self-help books and all of that kind of stuff, where they were just saying, well, it says here that we should do this and do this and blah blah blah, and unfortunately that's not parenting.
Well, I didn't get the sense that they were like malicious. I just thought that they were just
kind of removed.
Yeah,
they were clueless.
They're they're kind of disassociated from themselves and their relationship with their kid, and everything just kind of feels like they're on autopilot. And I don't like that moment. I kind of wish
they clearly have enough money to have statuary in their garden. They have enough money to have a garden.
Yeah.
Great pate, but I got a motor.
What
the scene where Veronica's mom comes walking in and Veronica is faking hanging herself to make JD go away. And Veronica's mom walks in. Like, I would love to just kind of sit down and write that moment from her perspective as kind of like a story, because you talk about something that could be an actual moment of clarity for somebody where you sit there and go, oh, fuck, I've, aside from the fact that my daughter has just killed herself, clearly I have not been doing something great.
I was going to say,
a moment we have to stop and examine your entire life.
Veronica swaying gently from the ceiling, or or from her mom's point of view.
From her mom's point of view, I think that whole moment of, everybody has that moment of a huge, massive shock, and you go straight to denial. And then you have to sit there and have that moment where you have to, accommodate yourself with it. And then eventually Veronica goes, hey, Mom, why so tense? And then it actually reminded me an awful lot of, if you've not seen Harold and Maude.
Oh, great.
Which they don't mention that in this. Who did they? No, she's Bonnie and Clyde, which I know they're two totally different stories, but Harold and Maude, great movie, and another example of teenager being completely aimless and listless and very removed parents.
But he doesn't resort to mass murder.
Although you get the feeling the thought might have crossed his mind.
It may have occurred to him once or twice. I just want to say that before this, Christian Slater did not sound like Jack Nicholson, but from every movie beyond this, he was a Jack Nicholson clone. But for this movie, it's the perfect choice.
I mean, if there was a Suicide Squad type movie where they had turned the Joker into an angsty fucking teenager, Christian Slater and Heathers would be it.
Oh yes.
I liked his line of she would never say, I remember what the word is, she would never say Myriad. Yeah, he's like, that just proves my point. It's a badge of honor. She's going to use as many 50-cent words as possible. Like, who thinks like that when they're writing? I don't know.
I think that there's the moment though where Veronica looks at him and goes, "Not bad. Have you done this before?"
Yeah, and then he doesn't answer. He actually kind of looks at the camera and goes a little bit.
There's like mugging of the camera. I might have missed that, but like I did know. I was like, you didn't say no. You didn't even laugh and go like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha. It drew the bullets. I'm
That
just
fucking
saying.
cup, by the way, that they hand Heather C. That lid is just all over the place. It's on the cup. It's on the counter. It's back on the cup again, even though Veronica took away the cup with no lid on it. Which cup is it?
And that's weird.
Editor.
He didn't I don't think he deliberately distracted her to make her pick up the wrong cup. But when he realized that she had picked up the wrong cup, he decided not to tell her. So there was a decision to murder that first Heather. But it was just like okay. It wasn't like it wasn't a straight line of.
Well, and it seems like a very teenagery thing to do, like to press the boundaries and do shit that, like, someone with a fully developed brain could be like, yes, this may actually end up in a kind of permanent, with kind of a permanent outcome. Whereas he's just like, nah, it won't kill her. It'll probably be fine. It'll be funny. Oh, shit, she actually did die? They didn't even check her pulse.
Well, they did. Well, though, I mean,
she could have like gotten her stomach pumped, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's possible.
Very fast-acting drain cleaner. Like, gotta look up that company. It's good stuff.
Works its way all the way through.
I say as I take another swig of it.
I don't know. I think that it kind of leads though into the ending, where at the absolute end of the film, absent the peer pressure of the other Heathers, Veronica and the remaining Heather basically are kind of allowed to not give a shit about playing the popularity games anymore. That there's a freedom that comes when, oh wait, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to play this. I am who I am. I'm not a role. Okay. And I think that's something that when you're a teen, I was having this conversation with a cousin of mine a few days ago. When you're a teen, you're desperately trying to find some space that you can fit into, where you feel like, at the very least, it may not fit you, but at least you feel like you can fit in that space.
Yeah, because if there's not a prescribed role that you're filling, then you don't exist.
You're absent any kind of reason to exist at that point in time. And it was something that I was thinking about watching the end of the film, where Veronica's hanging around, walking around with Martha, and you get this feeling
Martha
like
giving her little donuts on her scooter.
which was awesome. I thought it was great.
I love that.
And like, you get the feeling that Heather has this moment of, or Veronica has this moment of just stopping and feeling relief. Not even the fact that JD's dead and she doesn't have to worry about being killed, but more relief over the fact that all of the pressure of being that person doesn't exist for her anymore. And
well, basically for either person, there's no pressure for her to be one of the Heathers anymore, and there's no pressure for her to be this accomplice to JD's machinations.
But she is a Heather at the end, but at least I feel it says she is a Heather at the end, but she's going to use that power for good. She takes that. She takes the scrunchie and puts it on and says, "Heather, my love, there's a new sheriff in town," and then that new sheriff decides she's going to start treating everybody better, and you just see her start doing it. And that to me is like and I was telling John,
talking about it. She's not writing about it. She's doing it.
Yes. And I was telling John, like, to me, that's like where every movie of the 80s was leading toward that moment for me. Cause all the jocks and all the 80s movies before that were very on this. I mean, even the good ones like John Hughes still kind of made fun of the geek and, had their problematic stuff, but this movie was just like nope, and then she just puts it on and it's a completely different viewpoint at that point. The empathy,
on your way to play croquet.
The empathy isn't with the empathy, even though there's the darker elements are in the movie. The empathy isn't with the people who are doing that. The empathy is with the people who are victimized by it.
there's also, you know, kind of the commentary that like suddenly people have empathy for someone after they're dead.
Mhm.
Death gave Heather depth, gave Ram a brain.
But all of these things are because Veronica was speaking for them, not because of anything that they were saying. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
But yeah, when somebody passes, we start ascribing to them the best qualities that we can give them at that point.
I love my dead gay son.
It was
okay.
It
By
was
the way,
as
that
if
moment I think is one of the best shots I've seen in a film. When JD leans over to Veronica and says, "You got to wonder how he felt about a live limp wrist," and his sister turns and just looks at him.
Because
Like this,
she hears them snickering.
yeah, and it brings
Oh
you
shit!
right.
There was actually this was actually a human that's now dead. Fuck me.
Yeah, this actually has real impact on the people around you. I remember watching that, and that look just fucking destroyed me the first time I saw this film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Gets
like
me every time.
a lot of these people that we experienced in high school and even today, who are complete assholes to everybody. They may go home and they may be the nicest person on the planet to them, but they feel that they lack control, and so they go back into their other life and they try to exert it through being a complete jerk.
I can't remember who it was that was. It was a liberal that was socially knew Rush Limbaugh somehow, and he said Rush Limbaugh in his home life is a kind, you know, person, very friendly. He's like, it's almost like when he's playing a character.
Yeah, but
you know,
that's when
not to excuse him in any. Not I'm just saying that there's a it's all an act. It's all. You know what I'm saying?
There's the story that Henry Rollins tells about hanging out. One of his best friends in Los Angeles is William Shatner, who has Monday Night Football parties, and Henry would stop by, and then one day he comes walking in and he sees Rush Limbaugh, and he's like, "I can't hang. Like, I'll come to any other time that he's not here, but I can't. I know that there is going to be a social blow up, and I won't do that in your home."
Mm.
And, you know, to me, it's one of those where if you feel the need to play a character and that character winds up having, shall we say, a really bad and unfortunate influence on other people, then I actually have somewhat less respect for you.
That's what I'm saying. They care too much about what other people think. So they're going to go for the quick buck. They're going to go for the, you know, like, oh, this will play. And that's what the Heathers are kind of, what will play. And that's kind of why Heather won't talk to the other people that Veronica kind of wants her to talk to, is because she doesn't think it'll play. You know.
Well, and I think there's also a little bit of challenging the status quo is terrifying, even if you are in a position of power like Heather C. was. To challenge that status quo that she herself has been presumably upholding for at least 3 years. She was probably a total dork in junior high.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe she could have been cool, but no. Instead, she had to, you know, have a summer of reinvention, and she reinvented herself as a bitch.
Yeah.
As you drink your big fun cup with the blue.
It's delicious, okay? This blue kombucha is like my favorite fucking thing, and I'm glad that it's available year round now. Not just because sometimes I have to do movie reviews for Heathers, but you know.
Well, but if it were just a movie that did that and didn't like offer at the end some kind of solution, I would say, well, what's the point? But it does actually.
And the solution is let the crazy dude blow himself up.
Don't try to save him. Don't try to get involved with him. Well, and actually, I'm going to push back on that, John. And I wish that there had been someone else who could have gotten a hold of JD before he blew himself up. I mean, sometimes it became pretty clear, like by the end of it, that he did have a lot of self-destructive tendencies, and he was in a lot of pain, and he was lashing out at the world. Not an excuse, And in the end, you know, none of it really seemed to do the trick. And so what do you do when you've killed tons of people and it still hasn't crushed the pain inside of you or made anything seem like it has meaning? There's nothing left to do.
So you think he was redeemable?
I don't know that he was necessarily redeemable, but I don't want the narrative to just be like, so you just got to let some people blow themselves up.
Right. I think it's kind of reductive to think that everybody has to be redeemed in order to still be allowed to survive and contribute whatever they still can.
I wish he could have failed in some kind of other way where he would have found another reason to go on living.
So perhaps a better ending then would have been that the countdown would have reached 0 and it would have not gone off, and he would look down. I
always thought that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, like, and he looks down.
It stops, and he's like, tunk, tunk.
Well,
I think that might have been better.
That's what I'm saying.
He doesn't end up blowing himself up, and you know, then the school security guard tackles him, and they haul him off to hopefully.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, you know, he looks down and he sees it goes to 0, and he goes, well, that figures, and then gets like you said, tackled by security.
The camera, but finds he can't because his finger's been shut off.
Yeah, exactly.
This is so subversive.
Say fuck you.
I can't begin to describe how subversive this is for the 1980s. I would expect this to come out in the 90s, about the 80s, but this actually came out in the 80s. This is before.
Well, it was very talented.
Yeah, before. This is before Nirvana. This is before, you know, like grunge and like darker things were allowed in art. Even though there were rock was dominated by mostly guys singing about their sex lives. And, you know, like they were very much like the jocks in this movie. And then this movie comes along and I can't believe this movie got made.
It's kind of impressive. It was at Sundance originally, I think.
Was it?
I believe so. You can cut that out if I'm wrong.
Okay.
John, I think you were gonna say something and I kind of talked over you.
Oh no, it was just it was just the alternate type of ending thought. I don't know. I do give this movie a press play, but I don't think it held up as well as the last time I remember watching it. I think it was just because, you know, so much has changed about what is acceptable in society now. You know, we look back at movies like this and we see things like date rape, or in previous movies, we've looked back and seen, you know, the use of derogatories against homosexuals. And, you know, and it feels cringy at this point. So, you know, when I look back at films like this, where there are, you know, cringy things now, you know, it's fine to watch that because you can't erase history, but you can learn from it. And you can look back at films like this and say, wow, I'm really glad that that's not an acceptable everyday thing nowadays. You know, it still goes on, but it's not something that is brushed off nearly as readily as it was back then.
I think that it speaks for the time that it was in, specifically because of the fact that they included something like a date rape scene and things along those lines, where instead of it just being, for lack of any other way of putting it, let's say Revenge of the Nerds was kind of a celebration of stepping into the role of being the jocks. In this case, it was sitting around and basically saying, this is the shit that's going on in the background that we accept at this point in time that is horrifyingly wrong.
Yeah.
But it's the reason that I enjoy Heathers still and yet don't enjoy
Revenge of the
Nerds is that this is basically a film where it's very critical of the things that we accept and accepted at that point in time. Being a survivor of that particular era, this is a film that really does sit there and go, you see all this stuff that's going on in the background? Are you missing this? The fuck is wrong with you?
It has the elements John's talking about, but it has empathy for the right people.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
and that's
not
the reason.
It's not. It's just because it has those ingredients doesn't make it inherently a a film that should be avoided. Like
Right.
Revenge. Yeah. Well, I don't think he was saying that either, but I think that
the cringe factor is there,
but for purpose.
And that's primarily why I still give it a press play, because I think it's something that when you look back at a film like this, like everybody said, they're very critical of those kind of activities and those kind of transgressions against other humans, and I think that's good. I think it's good to see a film like this and go, wow, is that really what went on in the 80s?
But I mean, is it really
conversation? It is.
Is it? But no. That's not. Is it really something that's still in the past, or is it something that we're just grappling with now?
Yeah. I mean, this stuff goes on today, but it's
so
not nearly as acceptable.
It's not. Well, there's pushback finally against it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's still going on a massive scale, unfortunately.
Well, and the pushback now, I think, is more explicit. Like, yes, technically speaking, Veronica and JD are, taking out the bad guys and being critical of the people who are being, classist, who are being homophobic. In the case of Heather C. and the two football players, but at the same time, it kind of just boils down to, well, they're mean, and I just want my high school to be a nice place.
But you know what? This whole time that I've been talking about that, I haven't even been talking about the murders.
Right.
I've only been talking about the other things. It's like the murders that occur in the movie. Those are, for some reason, I didn't even bat an eye at that stuff. I was batting an eye at.
They're very incidental, and I think they're meant to be. Like, so it's a little horrifying, and maybe that's the point, that murders are so inencidental. Like, I would label this as a dark comedy, among other things.
Absolutely.
When Veronica's praying at one of the Heather's bodies, says, technically I didn't murder Heather, but who are we kidding here?
And all those prayers that occurred, from the different students and where their brains are, that was so cringe as well.
That priest, by the way, was also kind of
awesome snatch.
Dave, there was actually an alternate ending to this movie you were telling me, and it was much darker and kind of negated the meaning of the film. But let's hear it.
Okay, wait, let me find it.
Okay.
The original ending, I'm reading this from, by the way, if anybody here does not share my addiction and you have not lost entire days to this website, tvtropes.org. It will steal your life. Now then.
Even more than Wikipedia.
Oh, way more. The original ending had Veronica take JD's bomb and blow up herself and everyone in school, followed by a surreal sequence where everyone who has died is shown in an afterlife at a prom, where everyone, regardless of what clique they are and when they were living, if they were a clique at all, gets along. This was regarded as too dark by executives, and it was changed to one where Veronica rejects JD's ideal, kills herself with the bomb.
It kind of ruins like what the ending that they ended up going with. It kind of ruins what that says, because that makes JD right. And because he even has that line where he says, like, look, the only place where people are truly equal is going to be heaven, and people will look at the ashes of this high school and see that this high school was society. And this boy probably read a lot of Nietzsche.
Kat, you were right. Glenn Shaddix, rest his soul, was Otho in Beetlejuice.
Otho, not Odo, damn it.
Right, Otho. And he did the voice of the mayor. He did the voice of the mayor in The Nightmare Before Christmas as well.
Yeah, he did. That's right.
So I love this movie. I like I said, I can't believe it got made, especially around the time it got made.
Mm-hmm.
And
a little tiny miracle.
And I gotta say, as annoying as Christian Slater became later with his Jack Nicholson impressions, it was spot on here. for about a year. For about a year, when I wasn't trying to look like one of the Lost Boys, I was doing this a lot.
You were.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, a good movie.
You know, I had to follow up this movie with a double feature where I watched Empire Records right afterwards.
Yeah.
And that made me feel a lot better about my 80s experience that day.
Dan, do you give it an official press play?
I give it an official press play. I don't need to feel better about my 80s experience. It was an experience, and I had it, and I'm me today. So, there's great things about the 80s. One of them is right across from me on this screen.
Thank you.
Yes.
You as well.
There's a lot of bad things about the 80s, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And this movie isn't either. So I'm very happy that it exists. And I'm very happy to hear that it was a musical, even though I haven't seen it yet.
I was actually, if no one else brought it up, I wanted to throw in a couple bits of trivia.
Okay.
One of them is that Heathers did become a musical. And not only is it pretty fun, there's some good music in it. It was also brought to us by the people who were behind the creation of Bat Boy the musical and Reefer Madness the musical. Two of my favorite fucking musicals.
Nice.
Oh my God, Reefer Madness was a musical?
Yeah.
Yes. And they did a film version of it with Kristen Bell as the female lead. And the music in that is really good. And the story, it's all very like heightened and tongue in cheek. So of course these two minds, came together to bring Heathers to life, because they all have that same kind of vibe of just like, again, the beginnings of the whatever generation, just like, fuck this shit, man. Why are we even pretending? Whatever, I don't care. I'm gonna say it like it is. Nothing matters.
Jeff, who's the Big Lebowski? Jeff Bridges. He said seeing the Talking Heads for the first time was an Etch-a-Sketch moment where it shook everything out for him. It shook everything out that had come before. And I was saying to John, he didn't necessarily agree with me, but I said, this movie is like an Etch-a-Sketch to the entire 80s.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. For me, the Etch-a-Sketch was Pulp Fiction. Etch-a-Sketch for me was Nirvana and Pulp Fiction. But I get what he's saying. So, and this movie kind of, I feel he's kind of deserves that, a shake of the Etch-a-Sketch. Yeah. So press play.
One of my obvious reasons for the press play, Winona Ryder, she is iconic. And even though she's one of those actors where she's all at once an incredible character actor, but she also really plays herself a lot. But I don't mind it because I love Winona. She's a fucking weirdo, and I love her. Mm-hmm. And not just for Winona, but this movie is, despite the cringe factors here and there, you could watch it so many times, and there are so many different reads that you could put on this, and not necessarily to like suss out what the meaning, why the director and the writer wrote what they did, but just using this movie as a lens to look at a number of different things. You could look at teenage suicide. You could look at classism in the United States. You could look at queer issues. There are so many fucking things that you could examine through this movie.
Several college dissertations on this one movie. Each year you could do a different one.
For me, of course, the very stylized dialogue and the several surreal scenes that happen in this movie that aren't quite reality. And the fact that you can interpret it in so many different ways and use it across just such a wide variety of topics to look at, that's my fucking kind of movie. And of course, it's Bond a musical that I like. Press play.
Yes, it's Assassination Nation without feeling that in the pit of your stomach. By the end, I was just
more fun version of Assassination Nation.
Yeah.
But almost in reverse.
Yeah.
Because again, you still have that young, aimless boy who I would like to bet nobody ever fucking came after him other than Veronica. Not his dad, not other people in the school, not teachers. No one came after him.
He's moving around a lot. So
yeah, always on that fucking motorcycle. And how do you not get expelled for shooting someone in the fucking cafeteria?
Even if it is a blank.
They were blanks. How does that happen? Like, this is another one of those things. Like, I love this movie, but also at the same time, I can't even remember at this point, like, how common like mass school violence
was a later event
back in the 80s.
It wasn't really prevalent in the 80s.
It wasn't really a thing.
Right.
There was
at the very least, if this is anything to go by, it just didn't make the news like it did in the 90s and the aughts.
If this was anything to go by, maybe it was percolating, but it wasn't. It was Columbine was the first big.
Yeah,
I mean, there were people that got shot occasionally in a school, but there was there weren't any mass shootings that I'm aware of before Columbine.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that a couple of kids decided they'd had enough with the bullying, and I think that was really the era that began. You know, once the smoke cleared from what the events of Columbine were, they finally started analyzing what the symptoms and the causes were. And I think that's where the anti-bullying era started.
Do you think Daniel Waters was telling them, I told you guys this was happening and you didn't listen to me?
Yeah, I don't know. Right. I wonder if he is just as surprised as we were, or if he was onto something. I don't know.
I think he was onto something, because I'll tell you what, there's you know, you and I were both bullied, Dan. I've never considered anything like that, but I can definitely.
I also have never considered anything like that.
Right. But
thanks for making me verbalize that.
No. Well, obviously,
anyone was wondering.
But I can definitely see where massive amounts of bullying could really screw with somebody. It really screwed with me, but I dealt with it over the next 30 years, of self-hatred, and instead of carrying out an abominable act, which is what most people do. But
to be fair, I think they are also stewing in self-hatred, and instead of just trying to shove it down, they try to fling it away from themselves as far as possible.
Right.
Again, not an excuse.
Right. No.
An analysis, not an excuse. Sort of like my Rush Limbaugh comments. Believe me.
Yeah, it's like, I think I made a comment to you back in the when this all happened. We kind of actually recorded a little audio thing about it. I said I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And you went, whoa. I was like, yeah, okay. But it's one of those things where, I could never in a million years condone or agree with anything like that. But, I can understand where these kids, got to the point where they just couldn't handle life anymore.
I think that what this movie does that's really smart is that it shows you why JD's approach is seductive, but it also shows you why it's not productive.
Right, exactly. It did nothing.
Yeah. In fact, it actually does the opposite of what he intends.
Right, exactly.
Or what you think he would intend.
Heather McNamara is a fucking even worse tyrant than Heather C was, somehow.
Which requires a certain amount of effort, yeah.
So Dave, any thoughts?
Well, first off, I was the person who in grade school got bullied so badly that when I saw Carrie and the school burning down, I went, yeah, it's about
good for her.
Good for her. But for me, this film is definitely a press play, because one of the things, there's a whole host of reasons to press play, but a lot of it is simply the notion of when you're autopiloting your life, you have a tendency to ignore, without even trying to, the things that should be the most important to you. And like I said, there's that moment of clarity for a brief moment her mom has when Veronica's hanging there, that I just sit there and think, there's a whole bunch of horrifying things that I've seen people have to deal with over time, and you get smacked in the face with a rather horrid reality of something has passed by you and you can't get it back. I think that scene right there would have sold the movie to me, aside from the fact that it is dangerously brilliantly and incredibly funny in a very, very dark way. It is the essence of kind of human humor, where we use it as a pain shock absorber. And for that, I think that film is absolutely amazing.
The extreme always makes an impression.
Oh,
that's sort of the screenwriter's mantra with this movie.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it does. It's just really good. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot deeper than and it's funny as hell. Oh,
don't make us think that it's not fun. It's enjoyable.
It's a lot better than what I thought I was getting into when I first started watching it this time. I had watched it about, I want to say between 4 and 6 months ago, and I fell asleep about halfway through, and I was like, well, I guess that just didn't hold up like it used to. But it really is a good film.